European Union criminals could be barred from entering the United Kingdom when freedom of movement ends next year, according to the Home Office. It's today confirmed that EU criminals could be barred from entering the UK under tougher border rules designed to make the country safer. Joining me now is Mehmet, who is the chair of the Migration Watch. How is this going to be enforced, Alp?
Well, all I can say is that we've had a great deal of experience doing it, because it's exactly what happens with non-EU nationals and has happened for many, many years. That I would have thought would mean that we should now be able to certainly remove EU criminals in a way that we weren't able to remove them before. And that's surely a good thing. One assumes that they won't be able to come up with last-minute appeals or applications for asylum in the way that some non-EU nationals do. So I really do welcome this, but in a way it's only what should happen. We are out of the EU, and non-EU and EU should be treated exactly the same.
But we've seen recently as well from the same Home Secretary, Priti Patel, determined to get rid of people who are here doing no good and what have you. Whether she's right to use the language of do-gooders or lefty lawyers, I don't know. But the enforcement of these decisions is precisely my point. You get that far and then they're turfed off the aeroplane saying, oh, no, they've got the right to stay here.
Well, that is absolutely true. The effect of what the Lord Chief Justice was saying yesterday, that if they apply for asylum, then it has to be heard, effectively saying, look, if anyone believes that they will be subject to persecution, or indeed we will be destroying their family life if we send them back, and they're applying for asylum for that reason, then we should do it, and they should be prevented from leaving, and the courts must hear it. That strikes me as slightly absurd, frankly, particularly when it comes to EU nationals.
Sure.
But look, it's not just to defend Priti Patel, if I may. It's not the first time, and she's not alone. And frankly, judges have referred to the tactic of or strategy that can be used to delay and deter removal proceedings. And they themselves have pointed to some, very few maybe, but some lawyers who use this tactic and aid and abet fallacious, vexatious appeals for asylum. And that, I hope, will stop, and I hope will mean that certainly EU nationals, criminals, and we're talking about serious criminals, we're not talking about shoplifters, for goodness sake, we're talking about murderers, manslaughters, those who've raped, drug dealers. So in the main, this is a move in the right direction, and I welcome it.
Good to talk to you, Alp. Thank you very much indeed. Alp Mehmet, the chair of Migration Watch. Listening to that conversation, and indeed all of my conversations this morning, is Benjamin Butterworth. Do you think Priti Patel's going to get this one away? Alp clearly welcoming it, but my point to him was it's still an issue of enforcement.
Yeah, I mean, look, people that are criminals, especially serious criminals, shouldn't be allowed to come and live here. But the fact is that...
But the people who stop in a border control, and they can't even stop people coming across the channel in boats.
Yeah, and I think, working with France and with other EU countries will probably make it easier rather than harder to enforce those rules in terms of knowing who's coming over here. But look, the fact is that this is almost a nonsense from Priti Patel, because it's already the case, and has been the case since 2004, that EU countries, when we're in the EU, could stop criminals from moving in, regardless of freedom of movement. That was already the case. And if that wasn't enforced by past Home Secretaries, that was the fault of those governments, not a reason to have to leave the EU.
All right, Benjamin, stay where you are. How, Kit Malthouse, are you and your people going to stop criminals who've done a year in the European Union coming here when you can't even stop a bunch of people coming across on a dinghy?
Well, the first thing we need, Alastair, is the power to do so.
Okay, I've now given you the power. The House of Commons will approve it. How
Yeah.
are you going to enforce it?
So we're laying the regulations to do that today, and we do already do it for people who are non-EU nationals. So for some time now, we've had the ability to bar people who've got a criminal conviction of over 12 months, and indeed to examine anybody who's got a criminal conviction as to their pattern of offending and decide if we want them to come into the country or not. And we'll be applying the same rules to the EU.
And at what point, Kit, does that kick in? And a serious technical question: is there a way of stopping airlines from flogging them a ticket, or is it that they get stopped once they get to Heathrow or Gatwick or where is the enforcement active?
Well, they will be stopped at the border,
which
is what happens in other countries like the United States and elsewhere, that if you arrive and the database tells them that you have a criminal record that you haven't declared on your visa, if it's a visa application, or your the passenger information that you're given beforehand, then they can stop you at the border. But the key thing is that what we hope is that the current movement that we've seen on the EU side, such that negotiations can restart, will mean that we get a deal when we leave, which will include part of the security. But we've been working quite closely with policing colleagues in this country, in the Home Office, to make sure that we've got workarounds to try and gather the data we need to keep these people out of the country. And hopefully we'll be able to put that in place by January the 1st next year. And it will give us a significant tool, because we do see, in particular, organised gangs coming from across the world, frankly, to ply their trade in our country. We try our best to keep them out. We don't always succeed, but this will give us another tool to help.
You also try and get rid of them sometimes and deport them. And are you as angry as Pretty, your boss, where she talks about do-gooders and activist lawyers, where you've got a plane load of people who shouldn't be here ready to go, and then along come the lawyers and say, no, you can stay, it's fine. Are you as cross as Pretty is?
It's obviously very, very frustrating. It is. And, the legal profession, along with all of us, have a duty to uphold the integrity of the legal system and not game it, if you like. Now, that fundamentally, that decision is for judges to decide. But it would be great, wouldn't it, if we could speed the process up. And one of the things we're looking at is whether we can get a much more simplified process to make sure that we get a clear and simple decision about whether somebody can stay or can be removed in a time frame that is fair to us and, frankly, fair to them, because nobody wants to live in limbo. And that's hopefully where we'll go in the future. But look, we're all just trying to do our best in what is a very difficult situation here, whether it's the virus or an immigration or otherwise. And I don't necessarily want to impugn people's motives, but people do have to, realise that we all have a duty to maintain the integrity of the legal system in this country.